Do you get low back pain when you're lifting weights, particularly near this bony area of your low back? It might be something called Sacroiliac Joint Syndrome. Today we'll be taking a look at why that might be happening. Let's go. The sacroiliac joint is a joint formed between your sacrum, which is your tailbone right here, and your pelvis. This joint has a very small amount of range of motion, with research indicating that it only moves about 2 to 3 degrees. With that said, this joint is an area made for stability, with it being wrapped in ligaments and muscles to make sure that joint is nice and secure. So if you're feeling issues and tension in this area, actually stretching might be not very ideal for your circumstance. Stretching might actually be making your condition worse, if not just keeping it the same and delaying your results further. The sacroiliac joint has also been known as a cause of pseudosciatica, with pain referral from the joint going down the back of the thigh, down the leg, and into the foot as well. This can be very confusing for some patients because even though it mimics very similar symptoms, the trigger of those symptoms is going to be very different from conditions like a lumbar disc herniation. This is because even though the pain location is in the same place and the type of sensation that you're feeling is going to be very similar, what irritates your joint and what irritates your nerve roots are going to be two very different types of movements. One of the hallmark signs with this issue is that you might feel some pain during transitional movements. This includes getting up from a chair, getting out of a car, or bending over to pick something up. The pain tends to be very local and sharp in the area, with the referred pain being more dull and sometimes described as tingling or numbness in some people. This injury can stem from a single type of accident, or it could be the cause of a repetitive overuse of this joint and its joint capsule. So today's exercises is going to be focused on increasing joint stability inside of this SI joint. We'll be targeting the muscles in and around that joint that help to control your pelvis and basically get you out of pain and get you moving back the way you want. Let's get started. The first exercise that we'll be doing is going to be called the pelvic reset. Now, your pelvis is not actually being reset or anything like that. It's just called that for some reason. But for this exercise, we're going to use something like a broomstick. If you don't have a broomstick, you could grab anything like a hockey stick, a golf club, whatever you have lying around to do this exercise. If you have nothing at all that resembles a stick, that's pretty stable, I'll show you how to do it with just your hands. It's just not as comfortable for most people. So first thing we're going to do is get started by lying down on our backs. And from here, we're going to raise our legs up into the air, hips and knees at 90 degrees. You're gonna place that stick in between your legs, and you're just going to rotate it so that it's under one thigh and above the other. From here, you're going to hold the stick in position with your two hands. So you're going to maintain a very stable position with your arms. Next, you're going to get your top leg and you're push it down into the stick, and you're going to get your bottom leg and push it up into the stick as if you're trying to rotate that stick in your hands. However, your hands are going to resist that motion, and when you press into that stick, you'll find the muscles of your core and your hip activate, and you're going to push as hard as you can for about 5 to 7 seconds, and you're just going to relax. And you're just going to rotate the stick so that it's in the opposite position on both thighs, and you're going to push into the stick once more, holding that position for 5 to 7 seconds, and you're going to relax. For this exercise, we'll be aiming for 8 to 10 repetitions, 5-second holds each, and you're going to do 1 to 2 sets daily or as needed to alleviate a lot of that pressure or pain that you're feeling in that SI joint. So if you don't have something like a stick, instead, you could just use your hands. Basically, you're going to place one hand above your thigh, one hand below the thigh, and you're just going to push into your hands, providing as much resistance as you comfortably can. From there, you're just once again going to hold it for 8 to 10 seconds, and otherwise the exercise is pretty much the same, with your hands alternating positions as you complete each repetition. The next exercise that we'll be doing is going to require something like a yoga block. If you don't have this, you can use a foam roller. If you don't have a foam roller, you can just roll up a big fat towel and use that instead. So we're gonna place this yoga block just in between your knees. And this exercise is fairly simple. It's just an isometric squeeze, keeping your feet planted, your hips on the floor or surface that you're lying down on. You're going to squeeze that yoga block as hard as you can for about 10 seconds, making sure you're taking good breaths, but you're going for max effort here without it irritating your SI joint. So you're squeezing that for 10 seconds and then you're just going to relax. So you're going to do this for about 5 to 6 repetitions. So I'm squeezing as hard as I can now, so that you can hit about 1 minute of squeezing in total for that set. Just like that last exercise, you're going to be doing 1 to 2 sets daily, and you could do those sets separately or together. So you could do it all at once in the morning, or you could just do one set in the morning, one set at night. The next exercise that we'll be doing is going to require a band. For this, now we're going to be targeting our hip abductors. So the previous exercise was inner thigh. Now we're going to be targeting the hip abductors. So for this exercise, we're going to be taking a nice thick band, a loop band, and you're going to wrap it around both of your knees. Now, if you only have a regular band, you could just loop it around your knees and just tie it into a knot. That's completely fine. And you're going to aim for a band that's going to provide you a pretty good amount of resistance since these hip muscles tend to be pretty strong. So if you don't have any strong bands, just take multiple bands and wrap all of them up or loop them all around your knees so that you can get the amount of resistance you need. For this exercise, you keep the feet together, hips planted on the table. You're just gonna spread the knees as far as you can, holding this end range position for 7 to 10 seconds. You're gonna feel these muscles activate. You're gonna feel them cramp a little bit if you're deconditioned. And then you're just going to once again come back in. Now, similar to the last exercise, I didn't really mention this earlier, but you want to make sure you're taking a 5 to 10 second break in between these repetitions, just so that when you're doing each repetition, you're not allowing fatigue to prevent you from holding this squeeze for a long period of time. The reason why we're doing these isometric contractions is that so we can get these muscles active to stabilize those joints. So the longer the hold, the more stable that joint's going to be when you squeeze these muscles. And then you're coming back in. Similar to the last exercise we did, we're going to be doing around 5 to 6 repetitions so that we can hit about 1 minute of squeezes per set, 2 sets a day, all at once or separately as mentioned before. All right, so far we've targeted the hip flexors, extensors. We targeted your hip abductors and adductors. So next we're going to be using something like a Swiss ball, like this. Now, if you don't have a Swiss ball, instead, you could just use your hands similar to the setup we did with the pelvic reset exercise. This exercise, I like to call it the stale bug because it resembles a dead bug exercise, except for you're just in a single position. So you're going to place this ball on both of your knees with your hands stretched out right in front of you. Both palms pressing into the ball and your knees pressing upwards. You're gonna feel all of your core muscles engage, including your transverse abdominis. Now, while you're doing this exercise, it's really important that you can still breathe. So if you find that you can't talk to someone while you're doing it, you're straining a little too hard and you're not doing the exercise correctly. So just like now, even though you can hear my voice shaking because I'm shaking a little bit, I should still be able to breathe. After holding this for about 10 seconds, you can rest for about another 10 seconds. And just like the last exercise, you're gonna go for 5 to 6 repetitions. You're gonna push as hard as you can. Now, the great thing about this exercise is that this is a feedback exercise, meaning that this exercise will always be difficult because it scales off of how hard you are pressing into this exercise. So no matter how strong you are, you're using your own body as resistance. You're just pushing against yourself. So you won't really need to worry about progressing with heavier exercises using weights or anything like that. You just have to scale according to your effort levels, which begs the question, how hard should you be pressing? So for this exercise, you want to be aiming for a 6 out of 10 difficulty, which usually means you have a few repetitions left in the tank after you complete that 6th repetition. So if you do about 8 repetitions, but you stop short of 6, that's how hard you should be pressing. So you have a little bit of fuel in the tank for a few more reps, but you're just going to hold them in reserve. If you don't have the Swiss ball, once again, you could just use your hands, place them on your knees, and push into it as hard as possible so that you can get these core muscles to engage. And as you can see, I shake quite a bit. I'm not sure if you can catch it on camera actually, but you'll find that even the strongest people will shake like a tree in the wind, only because it is effort-based. If you find that this exercise is too easy, it's because you're not trying hard enough. All right, so that wraps up our Sacroiliac Joint Syndrome exercise video. For these exercises, you're generally doing them daily, and it can take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks for your symptoms to completely resolve. Once they're gone though, I still suggest to my patients that they're doing these exercises somewhat regularly, at least once a week, especially if you're doing some athletic activities like running, or if you do athletic activities like squatting or deadlifting. This will just make sure that your SI joint is nice and stable when you want to push your limits when it comes to your own athletic activities and training. If you have any questions regarding this video, please let me know in the comments below. I'll get to it ASAP. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.